What is up, YouTube? So I recently had a subscriber had a great idea for a video that I don't think we've talked about much or for a long time anyways. And then I just want to pull this up here so we can kind of get more into the discussion. So Ninja Shadow here said, this was on a past video, great video. Do you think you could make a video on how game collecting can be unhealthy for OCD or obsessive collectors? I had to stop because it got to the point where I was paying money for better quality promo inserts and red cards for games and just feeling the need of having a true complete game or I wouldn't be happy. Crazy to think that something so small about game collecting can really get people annoyed about their amazing game collection because it's not complete or missing a manual or insert or having a box with a slight tear or crease on it. So big shout out to Ninja Shadow here. Just on a side note, I always use you guys as great inspiration. This was a great idea for a video, so of course I want to shout him out and talk a little bit more into this. Now, we've talked about collecting addiction, we've talked about all that other stuff that goes on with buying video games. And like I said, I think one of the things we've kind of left out is the obsessiveness. There's obviously people out there that go for complete sets. Recently, Mort's Garage, he has been working on completing the Nintendo 64, and one of his last little grails that he had to get was the instruction manual for Sculptor's Cut. Now, he did a long, great story about how he finally got to that point, and now that he has it, he has completed his Nintendo 64, and, you know, obviously his box, manuals, and everything. I believe he has literally everything for them. And now, I've had people in the past, too. I've talked to, I think it's, Retro Reminiscence. We've talked about how insane and crazy it is sometimes about how you have to have everything complete. So, I purchased a Nintendo a while back that was boxed that somebody had, their mom had stored for them since they were a kid. And when I opened it up, it had every single inserts. And this... he might not even remember this conversation. I think we texted and talked about it a couple years ago. But some of the promo items and some of the inserts in there I've never seen before, and they were absolutely amazing to see. And it's just crazy too, because he said something about that he's kind of one of those collectors where he likes to have every little thing in there. I'm not saying he's obsessive by any means or anything, but he says he likes to have all that. And I've watched videos. I've watched pickup videos, flea market videos, swap meet videos, or whatever you want to say, where people have purchased games just because they were slightly better than the one they have. Whether, like he said at the end here, it had a better manual, the box was in better condition, or maybe the NES game itself didn't have any writing on it, you know, something like that. So the big question here is, at one point, does this become obsessive, or does this just become a normal collecting? Obviously, like he said, I had to stop because it got to the point where I was paying money for better quality promo inserts and registrations cards. So if it gets to the point where you can't enjoy your collection anymore simply because you do not have a certain insert, manual, or anything associated with that, then at that point it might be a obsessive issue. In the past, yes, I'm not gonna lie that I have purchased specific items because they were in better condition. Usually when it came down to it was because it was something I was connected with, something I loved, and having a better condition of it was just something cool to have. Now, on the other side though, I am one for just kind of having stuff that looks cool, and it doesn't have to be, you know, an absolute amazing. An example is right here. So, I had been looking for a Final Fantasy 1 box forever. I had a great condition cart, and I had a manual. And anytime I ever found the box for it, it was an insane amount of money. You know, much more than I wanted to pay. Not like Earthbound standards and stuff like that. But I finally came down to it as I found this great guy on Macari who had all these clamshell cases. And I've talked in the past about how I love the Sega Genesis clamshells. They are one of my favorite cases for video games, and I've also bought several of these for my N64 games that I have, like Conker's Bad Fur Day and stuff. But I was able to purchase one of these. I love these things. Like, to the point where people are obsessive about having the perfect boxes, where as you got collectors like me or just people that love games in general, these are very amazing. I mean, the game fits in there perfectly. And obviously I got a manual in there too. I'm looking for the map one of these days, but it's just something cool. Like, this was just one example of them. I picked this up too. So here I had a Final Fantasy VII Remake for Nintendo, and I was able to pick up a nice little case for this now for my game in there. And then also, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, and I've been having a loose copy of Final Fantasy 3 or 6 or whatever you want to call it floating around. Well, I was finally able to find this guy who had this, and then now I got a great little case for the Protect the Game, and that I really enjoy. Now, does this also open up a loophole of, or what do I want to say, a rabbit hole of wanting to have these cases for every single loose game? It could potentially down the road get to that, especially if you're buying way too many of them. But I'm trying to think of the mental health reasoning behind this. Now, obviously, he had mentioned it's OCD, which could very well be one of those things. I know a lot of people that have become obsessive over their collection, and I was one of them. At one point, I was not necessarily obsessive over having certain quality of items, but at one point when I was going to start a Sega Genesis collection, any game I purchased had to have the clamshell at least. I wanted the case for the games because I don't know if you guys have seen Angry Video Game Nerd or not. He has a big rack of Genesis games behind him, and they're all loose. And to me, that just looked disorganized and not very good. Obviously, he's got a huge collection. It looks good for his channel because he has so many of them in a row that it lines up. But like, even with the N64 games and stuff like that, having those loose copies just streamed out wasn't looking as appealing to me. So I wanted to get the clamshells for the Genesis games. Now, what did that entitle? A lot more money. And I instantly regretted it as soon as I got about 20 games in because it was just too expensive. I remember when the turning point was when I finally got a copy of Castlevania Bloodlines, I think it was, and I spent way too much money for it. Oh, and Shining Force 1, I think, and I was just looking at it, I'm like, okay, this is cool to have and everything, but this is not, I don't want this. I just kind of want the game. But I know a lot of collectors, and some people will not admit this, that they are, obsessive about stuff like this. They have to have certain quality of stuff. I've even heard of people, who was it? I had a coworker that was looking for a GameCube, and I had one for him. I got one extra one a while back, and it was dirt cheap, but it had stickers on it. And he did not want it specifically because it had stickers on it. He wanted the same color he had from his childhood, and he wanted to look pretty immaculate. Now, unfortunately, I did not have it, so we didn't work anything out. But down the road, I did fortunately find a GameCube for him. But if somebody just a normie or whatever is already wanting to have certain quality for stuff like that, just imagine the guy that's sitting there in his basement right now just staring at the wall, staring at all his games. So you got to ask yourself, once again, I'm not a doctor by any means. I don't have any kind of certificate, degree, or anything like that. All my suggestions or stories or whatever you want to call them is simply from past experiences or visually seeing other people do stuff. Obviously, if anything comes to the point where he said right here, I had to stop because it got to the point where he's paying too much, and he just feeling the need of having a true complete game or wouldn't be happy. If you are not happy with it, then don't do it. You believe me, if you're obsessive enough over it to the fact that you have to complete it or you will not be happy, then you have issues. And I'm not saying that in a mean way or anything like that. That is a huge issue right there, because obviously, I mean, it's come to a point where it's okay for that to be, but if you're truly unhappy with what you have, then yeah, that's one. It's like crazy to think that something so small about game collecting can really get people annoyed about an already amazing game collection. And that was one of my huge things about in the past. I had bought all those games and I had all that stuff, and I still was not happy with my collection. It took me selling off a large portion of it, keeping games that I was connected with that I wanted to play myself before I truly became happy with my collection. So I want to know in the comments below, guys, what you think about this. Are you one of those collectors that has to have every single insert, every single manual? The box has to be in almost mint condition, or you will not be happy with it? Or are you kind of like me, where you only like maybe want something for like your favorite game? So I have back there, there's a mint copy of Final Fantasy II. I was actually fortunate to find it. It's not one of my favorite Final Fantasies, but I was fortunate to find it for a great deal. And I will not lie, every once in a while I like to just pull it down, open it up, look at the box because I have a protective case on it, inspect the manuals, and look at the game, and it is in mint condition. And unlike, here where he said he wasn't happy, something like that does make me a little happy looking at that. But not to the point where I'd be obsessive over doing it for every single game I own, because there is people out there that will get rid of games or will not buy games because they want them to be truly immaculate and complete, and which is fine. But like we said, if it gets to the point where you're not happy and you just don't like it anymore, then it's not good anymore. Once again, big thank you to Ninja Shoutout for this great recommendation. And this is just a shout out to any of you guys too. I always read your guys' comments. I might miss out on some replies sometimes, but the original comment easily pops up on my YouTube, and I'm able to find it easy. So I always make sure to reply to those. And I love comments like these because even if I don't do a video about them right away, a lot of times I add them onto my checkoff list, and sooner or later I get to them. So lastly, yeah, like I said, comment below what you guys think about this. Are you a strictly complete collector, or do you just get games to play and you're just happy with every condition they're in? So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay retro, my friends, and we will see you in the next video. God bless, guys. Bye.